Can these breakouts repeat what they did in 2023, or will they flop? We've got all that and more on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source for all your fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Matthew Ane. You can find us on all social media platforms, podcasting apps, and, if you can, please leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify or wherever you may listen. And if you're watching on the YouTubes, please hit the bell below. It'll subscribe you to the channel. Also give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. Also, please subscribe to us on Subtext, where you'll get a more in-depth personalized experience with the Locked On Fantasy Baseball crew. And on top of that, you're going to have a great time just getting to know us and getting all draft prep and whatnot out and up and all that wonderful stuff. So please join the Diamond Club today. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. All right, guys, we got a great episode for you today. We're going to be talking pretty much is the guys that broke out last year. Are they going to actually be able to continue that, or are they going to flop? And quite honestly, like, some of the guys I have questions about, other guys I'm excited to see what they're going to do. And then there's some guys that I'm kind of on the fence with, and we'll see based off of not only, what my outlook could possibly be both on the both sides of the coin, but are they even worth drafting based off of the high volatility of either outcome coming out. So let's start off with a name that I feel is very controversial, for me at least, a guy I'm having a hard time ranking, and that's Zack Eflin. Zack Eflin, left the Philadelphia Phillies, went over to the Tampa Bay Rays and put together a really nice season, in all honesty. He had 177 innings pitched. He had 186 strikeouts. He had a 3.5 ERA with a 102 WHIP. On top of that, he had a FIP, which is fielding independent pitching, which is kind of like, which is a stat that pretty much says, hey, if I have an average defense behind me, this is what my ERA would actually be. And it was a 3.01. So it kind of tells you that, like, he was pitching a little bit below board, how he was actually pitching. But at the same time, I'm not sure if I'm buying it 100%. And with the ADP of 92 coming off the board and like the 36th pitcher off the board, I'm not sure if I'm willing to pay that price. I don't know if I feel all that comfortable with having Eflin as my starting pitcher too, essentially. Like that one, three. Like, I don't know if I feel real comfortable about that. And plus, also, too, you're throwing in some closers in the bit, probably about like 7 or 8 at that point. So he may even be a 2 on some teams. And that's a little too rich for my blood with Eflin. If I can get him as a 4, I'd be much happier. So, like, right now, for me, I'd rather not bet on him doing the repeat by taking him at that draft cost. Do I think there's a possibility that he could? Absolutely. I mean, you look at what he's always been able to do on the Phillies, right? He's always had like a 4 ERA on the post, but the FIP has been a lot better than he has on the ERA side. Where, like, again, I don't need to explain the stat, but like 2022 on the Phillies at 3.56, 21 3.68, 2020 at 3.39. Like, he's always posted good FIPS. The other problem is he was never really able to stay healthy. So, like, he wasn't able to stay on the field. And that also kind of, I feel, inflated some of his ERA as well, not being able to stay in the groove. So there was a couple things that were going against Zack Eflin when he was on the Phillies, that maybe he just couldn't truly break out. And it's different, because you're going to hear me say this about a couple other people, other players here. You know, usually we don't buy the late age, breakout, but at the same time with a pitcher, I kind of do. It's a grown man's game, and it's more of a chess match versus just being a good hitter, in my opinion. There's a lot more that goes into pitching. Quite honestly, you look at Zach Eflin, and there's like based off of just his age, what Tampa Bay Rays do, you know, there is there is a kind of a more of a realistic aspect of this actually happening. But again, the reason why I say I'm going to avoid him in drafts is because I don't want to bank on it. I don't think the draft price is right for me. You may say I'm crazy, a late like a lower end 3 or a high 4 would be a better spot for me in my rotation, how I would construct it, just based off of the fact that I don't want to walk out with my 2 being having such a volatile outcome at the end of the year. So I'm avoiding Zach Eflin right now. And this all can change. I mean, we're still in January. I'm recording this on January 24th. You're going to be seeing this on January 25th. And things can change. Like, my favorite expression I got from Jason Moore over at Fantasy Footballers. I'm a big fan of them. They're saying over there is, stay water, deal with the ebbs and flows and kind of don't be locked into your opinion of the guy at the moment and let it carry through, because you got to stay flexible. Things can change and can present himself where you could be like, okay, now that there is a potential, I'm seeing it. Let me do it. So, Zach Eflin could be that case. We'll talk about him more as we get closer to draft season as well. It's probably my famous line right now, but I spent way too much time on this guy. Another name that I want to talk about is Justin Steele. He had a great year last year. In my opinion, kind of came out of nowhere. Um, you know, 2022, he had a good year. Honestly, like it was 119 innings pitched. We were even recommending to pick him up in 2022 as a good waiver wire pickup. And he did pull through for you in those aspects and kind of like built off of it. And this is why I'm kind of like almost on board. I got to see his ADP is the only thing. So like it's all about price for me. And right now he's coming off the board as like the 42nd pitcher. Of course, that's running probably about like 10 closers. So probably more like the 32nd. And I'm not truly mad at that. In all honesty, like you think about what he did and you're like, okay, well, I'm not really I'm willing to pay the price. I have him as my 33rd pitcher going into the season right now. And I'm kind of like, I'm okay with that. Pitcher 3, and this draft pitcher 4, if possible, depending on where you're able to go. And if he's still sitting there and you've already drafted a couple pitchers, it's a really nice compliment to almost round out the rotation at the top there. And Justin Steele can provide you with that, because last year I think there is some truth to it, which I wasn't really like completely in. Like last year, I totally sandbagged the dude and said, "Hey, I didn't believe in it," but you look a little deeper and you just look at what he did and you're like, okay, this is legitimate. 173 innings pitched. He had 176 strikeouts. He had 306 ERA. He had a 117 whip. And then his FIP was a 302. You look at that and you go, okay, it's legitimate. It's good. He had a good 2022. He's building on 2022, showed it out on 2023 when he was able to get 170 innings, able to handle the workload down the stretch. Like, these are positive things for a pitcher that, you just got to be like, okay, these are trending in the right directions. You'll see me talk about this with pitchers if you stick around, where there are certain milestones for me to see in their progression, whether they're going to be able to continue what they're doing and that I can trust them in the next year, or, am I going to back off? And right now, Steele is doing everything that he can to show me that this is legitimate. So I'm kind of okay with walking away. I'd prefer for him to be my 4 as well, but depending on how my team's constructed, I wouldn't mind taking the risk on Steele as well. He's 27 years old, perfect prime age for a pitcher, in my opinion. So I'm liking Steele a lot. And let's see what this year brings. But before we move on, I got a whole bunch of great names, a lot of names that you guys probably have questions on, and is it legitimate or not? So please stick around right after this. The NFL season is wrapping up, but there's no better time to get in the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is super easy to use, and there's so many different ways to place a bet, like live same game parlay. And if you're having trouble finding a bet, you can find bets in the new Explore tab or make a parlay in the Parlay Hub and find the most popular ones. The best way to find them, I already said that, I apologize. And there's way more things that you could go and find these all different awesome point spreads and things like that to help you create an awesome parlay and so much more. So visit fanduel.com/locked on and make your first bet a touchdown. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Locked On has launched its first ever national 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here 24/7 covering the top stories of the day with the local experts covering on Locked On plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national 24/7 streaming channel, which is actually really dope. You need to check it out. You're going to, honestly, if you like our show, you're going to like our other shows. And they're going to give you a nice introduction to your local teams, and honestly, you're going to really enjoy it. A lot of great podcasters with great information going across our whole network. But here we go. Also, we got something else we mentioned at the top. Introducing Locked On Fantasy Baseball fans. The Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast is presenting the Diamond Club on Subtext, your ultimate fantasy baseball companion. Dive into this offseason with Dom and I as we provide tier-based rankings of over 100 outfielders and starting pitchers, prospect insights, sleepers, breakouts, and busts. And we can personalize the draft trade if you send that on over. And if you have burning questions, we've got the answers. Also, as the season unfolds, rely on us for our dynamic content. Get real-time alerts right to your phone, including waiver wire rankings, instant call-up alerts, injury reactions, and a whole lot more. Stay ahead of your fantasy league by joining the Diamond Club on Subtext, where the path to your victory begins. Subscribe now and elevate that fantasy baseball experience. And guys, one last little advertisement piece, I promise. Okay. We are also giving away a listener league spot. We're going to be announcing it on February 22nd, I believe I said. All you have to do is sign up for the Subtext and send us a screenshot of a 5-star rating and review on Apple or wherever you may listen. Spotify, unfortunately, doesn't do the reviews. You can give us a 5-star there, but really looking for the review. It really helps us out. And you know what? It'll get you an opportunity to be in the listener league. So it's a win-win for both of us. But all right, let's get back in this. Enough with the advertisements. I got a name that honestly, I got a really strong distaste for right here. That's Yandy Diaz. Yandy Diaz, I feel like, is just a name we can't really escape. He was like a fantasy baseball waiver wire darling, I believe in 2020, if I'm not mistaken. He legit showed out a little bit. Yeah, in 2021, I apologize. And in a short, brief stint of 465 at bats and was really helpful down the stretch, but then kept getting hurt and whatnot, and just really wasn't able to bring it to the part, and then kind of showed out in 2023. He's age 31 breakout, and I'm not buying that. You can keep those bag of donuts, even though last year was pretty impressive. 525 at bats, 95 runs, 35 doubles, 22 bombs, 78 ribs. Walk to strikeout ratio is pretty good, 65 walks to 94 strikeouts, but batted 330, which is a career high by far. He has put up 300 batting average seasons, even 296 last year. It's just this year, 2023 compared to 2022 was, exponentially better. 20 more runs, 20 more ribbies, 13 more home runs, and you're doing it at age 31. I almost want to say, okay, let's get the steroid test out, because what are you doing, Yandy? But I'm not trying to get a defamation lawsuit. I'm just kidding. But I'm not buying the age 31 breakout. And my rankings reflect that. With Yandy Diaz right now, I have him pretty much not undraftable, but somebody I'm not trying to walk away with in the in a draft if possible. I have him down as my 20th first baseman, and I'm kind of okay with avoiding him at all costs. I don't think that 2024 is going to look anywhere relatively close to 2023. But let's move on. Let's talk about another name here that I kind of I'm on the fence with. Like every time I look into him, it's, you know, is this real? And it's Lane Thomas. Lane Thomas was actually like a great waiver wire pickup this year. The problem is my guy is a little bit on the other side, age 27, you know, really didn't show out until this year. He's been in the league for a little bit too, and finally got some real playing time with the Nationals over the last 2 years. And maybe that's all he needed was to have a full season where he wasn't getting moved around or, worrying about fighting for a spot. Maybe that's just it. But at age 27, I'm not really excited about the breakout. Even though he stayed healthy too, 628 at bats, 101 runs, 36 doubles, 3 triples, 28 bombs, 86 ribs, 20 stolen bases, and batted 268. That's a great season. I don't know if I'm willing to walk away with him as, my second or third, outfielder at that point. Let's see if I can pull him up real quick on his ADP. Okay, I can't. It's fine. But this also happens when you have. Okay. Apologize, guys. But anyway, I'm just going to move on from this. Thomas honestly had a good season. I'm just not sure if I'm willing to pay the price or, anything of the sort. And when it comes to this, right now I have him ranked at the position outfield at 40, and I don't foresee me budging on that. For some reason, he's not coming up in ADP, which is just kind of driving me nuts. But it is what it is. Oh, I know why. But ultimately, here's how I approach it. If you can get him as your outfield 4, I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it at all. If you can get him at that price, but you're not. I finally got it. He's going off the board as the 24th outfielder. I apologize for the delay and my spazziness, but 24 is way too rich for my blood. I hope that falls. I hope he becomes more affordable. Essentially, I do not feel comfortable walking away with him as my 2. Um, you know, and it's just one of those things. Even though it's pick 108, so I mean, I'm hoping, quite honestly, guys, that you have at least 2 outfielders by pick 100. You'll see as we do our mock drafts that you know you should have 2 by then. And also, too, Lane Thomas still would not be a guy I'm waiting around and banking on being, the second cog in my wheel of my 3 or 4 outfield, lineup. No bueno. So please do not do that to yourself, because I have a feeling he's going to be leaving you in the dust. So let's move on. I've been giving you a lot of hot and cold, and here's another hot one, and a hot take. I love Josh Lowe. Josh Lowe, great season from him last year. Great. And I think this is legitimate. I think that we are going to see a lot from this kid. And I think 2024 is going to birth somebody that's going to be super valuable. 466 at bats last year, 71 runs, 33 doubles, 2 triples, 20 bombs, 83 ribs, 32 stolen bases. Walk to strikeout ratio is absolutely atrocious, but who cares? So he just will be a tick down in the, points league, because it'll hurt you there. But his batting average was a 292. So, Josh Lowe, what do I expect from him next year? Well, for starters, I think we're going to see a 25 home run season this year. I think the power is legitimate. And I think 25 is definitely a reasonable expectation. Only 5 more than what he did last year. And I'm expecting him to get at least another 100 at bats, if not a hair under. So in that time, I definitely foresee him hitting another 5 home runs, along with the stolen base numbers could probably hit 40. So Josh Lowe can be, a real barn burner here. And he's going to be the new centerfold of that offense, in all honesty, because, with the whole Wander Franco, issues going on, they're going to have to rely on him a lot. I have him as my 20th outfielder as well. Josh Lowe, I have a feeling, is going to be such a great pick this year. And Josh Lowe is going off as the 19th. So I'm kind of right there with ADP, pick 74. I think Josh Lowe is going to be an excellent pick in 2024. So, guys, I got one last sponsor for you. Please stick around. I got great names and a lot of names you're going to want to hear about. We're back. And this is the home stretch. We got maybe a little less than 10 minutes, depends on how fast and how long I decide to stay in a rant. But I got about 3 more names. And a guy that Dom and I have been drafting in almost every mock draft, not just because the value is just absolutely ridiculous, but because Dom and I truly believe in this kid. And it is Jesus Luzardo. Um, I love Jesus. I've been waiting for this a while. If you've been playing fantasy baseball for a while, you've been waiting for him to finally break out. Captain Four Eyes, I think, finally, did it for a full season. And the reason why I call him Captain Four Eyes is when he was on Oakland and got traded over to Miami, you know, the first thing Dom and I noticed, he was actually over at my house, and we're like, is he wearing glasses? And me and him are like, oh my god, and oh my god, his stuff looks great. It's placing, it's what we've been waiting for. And then we see 2022, which he didn't pitch like a full year. He had 100 innings. I don't remember if there was injuries. So write in the comments if there was to drive my point home. But he got about 100 innings and 120 strikeouts. And I was like, this could be a breakout next year. I think that it's going to be. Please get him on all your teams, Matt. And last year I did, and it paid off because he had 178 innings pitched. He had 208 strikeouts. He had a 3.58 ERA with a 1.21 WHIP. WHIP is a little high, but you're gonna see that he likes to strike everybody out. He's still young at 25, and I think that'll eventually come down. But he likes to strike everybody out and their mother. So, like guys like that, like Blake Snell early in his career, where just the WHIP is just going to be absolutely outrageous to start, and then eventually trickle down with maturity. On top of that, I just want to point out his FIP was a 3.55 to compare to his ERA at 3.58. So everything for what he did last year is just legitimate. And I feel that Luzardo is going to be a great pick. He's my number 17th pitcher going, for me at least, going into this year. And there is no signs of stopping me from picking him. Like straight up. Like I'm all about it. He's going off the board as like pitcher 35 again. Take out like 7 or 8 closers in that time. So, more like pitcher 28, we'll say. And that's pick 89 off the board. Like you see in our mock drafts over the last couple weeks. If you haven't watched it, you're new to the show, please go back and watch them. And both our mock drafts, we've had Luzardo on our team because not only is he a value, and just our draft strategy approaching this season so far early seems to allow us to capitalize on not only being able to pick Luzardo almost every time, but waiting later on pitchers. And Luzardo is a fantastic piece to have like a sweet third pitcher. And also while we're kicking him in the like 7th or 8th round, it's magical. It's just magical. I have all hopes on him. I'm totally comfortable walking away with him as my 2 in most drafts too. Like Luzardo could be, somebody that you're really like, wow, I can't believe I got this kid. And man, potential, just potential anything. In the dynasty leagues, if you're doing a startup, he's one of the guys you're going to want to target too. I promise you. The career trajectory could be bananas. Like, I mean, it took, and I'm nowhere saying like these guys are close, but I mean, the prospect pedigree was the same with him and Zack Gallen, and it took Gallen a little bit of time to figure it out. Luzardo's kind of like on that same pace. Like we could see something really ridiculous from Luzardo, but that's kind of more on the higher end and kind of more on like, my excitement for the player versus like what the actuality is. But I mean, there's a world where that's a possibility, and we might see it this year. So just Luzardo, keep here. Don't forget about him and draft him. I promise you, you're not going to be mad at it. That breakout is absolutely real. Now, let's talk about this next guy here. It's kind of like a, Sherlock kind of moment. I kind of just wanted to highlight him because I love him, and it's Gunnar Henderson for this year. He's going around the same pick as Ellie De La Cruz, and based off of your team construction, you're going to be deciding whether to do Gunnar Henderson or Elliott, essentially. 3rd round, and they're pretty much going like back to back. So like if you want a little bit more staple in your lineup, somebody that's done it and broken out, and I think is going to take the next step forward next year. I think Gunnar Henderson is the right pick, just based off of, an earlier pick and a safer pick. So like Gunner's usually been my pick if I'm trying to be a little bit more conservative. I do like Ellie a lot, but there's the realm of possibility where his batting average is just absolutely duty. But we'll see. I mean, I don't foresee that either. I love Ellie. And this is by no means me like stepping on his head while he's trying to come up for air in the water. But Gunnar Henderson, I just think is just going to be the better pick for this year. Where like I think he's going to build off this team, this last year's performance, and really take it forward. Because even though Gunnar had like a terrible start to his season, he really finished out strong with these final numbers: 560 at bats, 100 runs, 29 doubles, 9 triples, 28 bombs, 82 ribs. Walk to strikeout was terrible, but 255 batting average. And like I'm telling you right now, I'm trying to pull up his splits between first and second half. But like, what he did once he finally figured it out and was able to really break it down, like, man, oh man, was he impressive. Like, first half, he was batting 246, second half, 264. You know, in that time frame too, like he had 15 bombs in the second half. We had 13 in the first, but 6 triples in comparison in the second half, which is monstrous. 18 doubles in the second half. Like, the dude turned it on and really turned the corner for me. And I'm just like, man, he is going to be so much fun this year. And that Baltimore lineup's just going to be fun. So, Gunnar Henderson is a must draft next year. And somebody I think the breakout was absolutely legitimate. And you know, is going to be nowhere near with we're going to see what Jonathan India did, where he just actually poo-pooed after winning Rookie of the Year. So I think Gunnar Henderson is absolutely legitimate. But let's move on. Let's talk about this last guy here, and that's James Outman, a guy that if you were with us last year to start the season, I do this episode every single year, the week right before right before, not playoffs, before the season starts, right? We're in that week, all the drafts are done. Hey, we're prepping for week 1. Guys they put on your watch list or waiver wire pickups to make if you drafted a guy that you could move into the IL. James Outman was on that list. James Outman, yes, he had his ups and downs throughout the season, but to start the season, he was winning you weeks. James Outman also at the end of the season kind of came back and did his thing. I love James Outman for this year. I think what he did is repeatable. He's going to have playing time. That lineup is just fantastic. He's 26 years old. First full season in the bigs, really only got a little taste last year. Like there's a lot of things on this kid's side that are just saying, yo, next year could look nice. So like 483 at bats, 86 runs, 16 doubles, 3 triples, 23 bombs, 70 ribs, 16 stolen bases, batted 248. And like, there was no sign of slowing down, honestly. Like, you look at this kid, even in the minors, he had 31 bombs. He had, 23 stolen base season, a 20 stolen base season, batted 294, 266, had a couple, one low season, and then still 264. Like, I think the batting average is like 260 to 270 range. I think that the power is in the 30s. I think the ribbies are just going to be astronomical in the runs too, just based off of what's on that team between Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Ohtani. Like, that team is loaded. And then adding Teoscar Hernandez, like adding Outman into the mix as a power dude and Max Muncy. Like, I could just keep going on. Like, this team just could provide for him. And I'm loving Outman. I got to take a look at his ADP, whether he's actually like worth the pick. But right now, for me at least, Outman is my 39th outfielder, and you know what? I'm totally okay with him being like my outfielder four in those regards. Like, that's a steal. He's like your UT almost in a lot of ways. Like, he's going off the board as the 42nd, literally mine. Pick 179. Like, feel comfortable with that. Walk away with Outman at that pick. I think that it's a no-brainer. But guys, thank you for being a part of this show today. Thank you for being part of this Dolo thing. Monday, Mock Draft Mondays coming to you nice and hot. So check out that. And thank you. Please like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. Don't forget to send us a screenshot and join the subtext so you can get enter into the Listener League. Guys, thank you. Have a good weekend. Peace.